Welcome everybody once again to our Yachting in Tahiti and French Polynesia program happening at the end of next year, at the end of 2023 in November. Just a couple words for those of you who are new to Wheel and Anchor. A trip like this is really like all of our trips are really designed with a traveler in mind, people who are looking for the kind of experience where you can share a few laughs, share a glass of wine, and mostly the learning and all of those experiences that, when you travel around a lot with people that or people you have something in common with, it's just a very different experience than if you're just a sort of going on your own, or if you're an anonymous person with a big group. And so our trips are famous for a place where you not only have a great time traveling, but you get to meet other people. And of course, in doing that, you become you just become connected to your, fellow traveler human beings. And of course, we get out and see all of these very interesting places around the world. My goal is that people get to see parts of the world that you might not otherwise go to. I say we'd like to go a little beyond the London, Paris, Rome, if you will. So that's our mission at Wheel and Anchor. And this is certainly one of the ways to do that over in the South Pacific in Tahiti. Joining me today on our webinar is Barb, who you'll see on the screen there. Hi, Barb, one of our trip specialists that takes care of all of your inquiries and booking if you decide to join us for this or any other program. And of course, my name is Gordon, and I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. Today, we are going to take you on a little tour around French Polynesia. That is the archipelago of islands that you find way down out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, sort of between New Zealand and North America. That's where French Polynesia is. I'm sure you've probably seen it on a map before. We've all heard of Tahiti. It's one of those dream exotic destinations. And I'm going to be taking you on a little tour there, which is where we're planning to go at the end of October, beginning of November of next year. So let's take a look at the program. Let's take a look at all these beautiful photos that my colleagues have put together that will give you a sense of what you can expect on a trip like this. First of all, the map. We begin in the capital of French Polynesia, which is Papeete, which is the closest thing to a city. It's a small city on the island of Tahiti. That's where we will fly into. Probably you will fly from either LA or San Francisco, or from whatever point in Canada. That's the most common direct flights into Tahiti. We'll spend the first few nights there, and then embark on our motor sailor, where we'll head first of all over to the Society Islands. Bora Bora is, again, probably a name you've heard of before. And we'll spend a first part of the trip there before heading over to the so-called Tuamotu Islands, which are much more remote, and visiting places like Rangiroa up there with its famous giant atoll, and then heading back to, again, the Society Islands with Moorea, which will be our last stop before returning to Papeete. That will be our trip. So let's take a look at some of the things that we're going to be doing on this trip. First of all, when we get to Tahiti, or to get to Tahiti, we have to fly, as I say, from Canada, wherever you're coming in from in Canada. Most of the flights we will likely fly with Air Tahiti Nui, the airline of Tahiti and French Polynesia, and they fly I believe now they're back flying on a daily basis. Of course, with the pandemic and all, everything was sort of thrown up in the air. And you can fly then on an overnight flight, which will leave on the 30th of October and arrive in the following day to Papeete. And we're going to start in Tahiti, which is the largest island. It's the capital. It's sort of the commercial hub. It's where everything starts from. And the way we've designed this program is that we've got the first 5 nights, or what in principle, it's actually 4 nights, because the flights from North America arrive very early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning. And so we've already pre-booked the first night, because when you get there, flying in this direction, for those of you that have traveled to Asia before, and particularly to Tahiti, the jet lag is kind of a killer. You don't really sleep right and all the rest of it. So we've left the first part of the trip for you to get a chance to just soak it all in this beautiful resort. We're going to be staying at the Intercontinental in Papeete, again, which is the capital city, not far from the airport. And you'll have a beautiful room looking out over the sea, looking out towards Moorea, which will be the last place we stop on our cruise. And this really is a lovely place to sort of enjoy and relax the day that you arrive, and then the whole next day. So you've really got almost 2 full free days where you can, as I say, just get caught up on the jet lag, enjoy the facilities of the hotel with their gigantic pool overlooking the sea. You can go down to the beach, you can go into town. Papeete is sort of a lively place. As I say, sometimes they say that sometimes they even have a traffic jam there. It's certainly a small city by most of our standards. And then the second day as well, we'll have a little Polynesian music. In fact, music from the Marquesas. The Marquesas is another set of islands out in the South Pacific, and we'll learn a little bit about the influences of the different cultures, like the folks from the Marquesas, as they put on a special evening on that second night. And by the time we get to day 3, you'll have caught up, you'll have had a chance to sort of acclimatize to the warm weather that you have. I mean, obviously Tahiti is warm all year round. This time of the year is no exception. And so we'll head out and explore a little bit of the big island of Tahiti itself. First of all, going to the so-called East Coast, which they sort of affectionately refer to as the Jurassic Coast. So this is where you see that volcanic formations that created French Polynesia in the first place are most apparent. You know, you could see by this picture the jagged cliffs and all of which are now covered in vegetation, kind of like you see here. It's a sort of a very dramatic landscape, and in contrast to the West Coast, which we'll visit on the next day. There's some interesting things here. We'll learn a little bit about the story of the lepers. You know, a lot of in the days of leprosy back centuries ago, they banished people here to French Polynesia. They wanted to get them far from society as possible. And so we'll visit actually one of these former leper colonies, and you get a sense of, and what I like about this trip is that we are, Tahiti's known for all the beautiful beaches, and you'll see the photos, the coral reefs, the colorful fish. I mean, this is the pinnacle of all that. But it's the Polynesian culture that we'll get various glimpses of and an understanding of, and what all transpired here, over the last couple of centuries. So it's really quite interesting. There's some cool natural features as well. We'll visit a blowhole, where the ocean comes in and spews the water up like a geyser. There's a spectacular waterfall. All in all, it'll be a great and full first day of touring along the east coast of Tahiti. And then the next day, we'll see a different thing altogether, because we'll get a little bit more starting into this Polynesian culture. We'll visit one of several maraes that we're going to visit during our cruise around the islands. And a marae is like a sort of a sacred communal space. It'd be like the ancient version of a community center. And they're marked by sort of circles of stones and so on that the Polynesians use. And it's similar if you've traveled to places like Easter Island, Rapa Nui, or to even New Zealand. The Maori people all stem from the same Polynesian culture, and these sites are still, to some extent, even in use today. So we'll when we visit Arahuru, okay, I'm going to give up on my Polynesian pronunciations. When we visit this marae, it'll be the beginning of a story that's going to intertwine over the next several days. We'll also get a chance to visit the spot where Paul Gauguin spent the last part of his life. Of course, the famous French post-impressionist artist moved here because of respiratory issues, and did some of his famous paintings of Tahiti in the last years of his life. And there's a wonderful spot where he used to bathe in the waters that you'll understand why people even back in the end of the 19th century came all the way out to Tahiti to enjoy this incredible space. The next day will be time to embark on our ship. So we'll have a morning to sort of get packed up and ready to go and enjoy the beautiful facilities, the Intercontinental. We'll head down to the port and embark on this beautiful vessel, the so-called Panorama 2. So the Panorama 2 is part of a fleet of privately owned yachts and motor vessels, motor yachts and sailing yachts that I've been working with for many, many years. The ships come from a family out of Greece, actually. And the Panorama 2 has been sailing for the last couple of seasons in Tahiti. Of course, they had to take a bit of a break over the COVID period, but they're back in full force. And this is really a lovely ship and perfect for exploring these kind of waters, because she's about 174 feet long and houses just a maximum of 49 guests with 18 crew. So, it's quite an intimate environment, big enough that, you've got space to move around. You've got obviously, a lovely sun deck at the aft. You've got outdoor dining spaces here, which you'll probably spend most of the meals dining outside in the warm weather. But of course, if it's super humid, or if we happen to get a spot of rain in the early evening, which can happen at this time of the year, there's a wonderful indoor salon as well for dining in. There's a space here, an indoor lounge as well, air conditioned. So again, you've got the amenities and the spaces to be comfortable, because you're going to be spending a lot of the time outside in this humid environment. So it's nice to have some comfortable spaces. We have cabins on 2 decks, a main deck and an upper deck. The cabins are really quite comfortable. I would say they're functional. They're around 15 square meters, 150 square feet in space. We have double cabins. We have twin cabins. The cabins on the upper deck have a small window, and then the cabins on the main deck just have portholes. But as I say, I've sailed on not the Panorama, but the sister ships in the fleet, and I really find they're really quite comfortable, and they suit the purpose very, very well. There's a nice bathroom and the shower. It's big enough that you can sort of bend over and pick up the soap. My benchmark for the comfort level of a yacht. So as I say, we'll embark on the ship, and our very first evening, November the 3rd, we will set sail into the sunset, heading sort of northeast towards Bora Bora, which will be our first stop. And Bora Bora, again, needs no introduction. I think you've probably seen photos of the overwater bungalow resorts that they have. This is like one of the most popular honeymoon destinations of the world, if you can afford it. Those overwater bungalow resorts are upwards of $2,000 a night these days, because there aren't very many, but this is really the place to do it. And we'll spend actually 2 nights at anchor in Bora Bora, which will give us a good chance to get a sense of the island. And so the first morning, we'll get up, you'll look up at the peak, at the mountain here, Mount Otemunu, I believe it's called. The way that this trip is set up is that we have included 1 excursion each day. There's generally 2 per day. And so you'll get a choice. Some of them will be a little bit more active, engaging, like kayaking or snorkeling or something like that. And others will be more of a land program, a little bit easier. So you'll get to be able to choose which excursions that you want to go on, 1 per day. And for example, the first day in Bora Bora, those that are brave enough will be able to go for a snorkeling expedition out into one of the lagoons, where you will see, we'll be able to snorkel with black-tipped reef sharks and stingrays. And you can swim with all these things. If you haven't done it before, it's quite an experience. It's very daunting when you first get into the water, and you see these massive stingrays swimming underneath you, but they are generally couldn't care less about humans. And so once you sort of get over that sort of initial shock of getting in the water and you can swim around, it is a magical experience. Those that would prefer a land-based excursion, we're going to go up to Taha, which is one of the towns on the island of Bora Bora. We'll visit a vanilla plantation because, of course, the agriculture that's left over is generally around spices. In the islands, they also produce sugarcane for rum, and we'll do a rum factory and taste some Tahitian rum. And we'll have one of two spots where we'll visit a pearl farm during this trip. So if you miss it and opt to go swimming with the sharks, then you can do the pearl farm at the end of the trip. But that's what we'll do for the first of 2 days. The second day, we will have a 4-wheel drive trip. So that'll be the one option. We'll be able to go on some of the private roads again up into the more mountainous area and get some incredible vistas looking down, over some of these resorts, like the sort of thing like you see in the picture here, the gardens, the vegetation, just amazing. It's a little bit more of a rougher excursion, although they're very comfortable 4-wheel drive vehicles that we use. You'll see some of the remnants of the World War II history that was here, the cannons and the artillery that was all left behind when Americans occupied part of Tahiti during the latter part of the Second World War. We'll have an slightly easier trip on a so-called le truck, where you go on the back of basically it's like a pickup truck, an open air vehicle, taking us through some of the towns and villages where the local people live. And again, this is, I think, an important part of the trip as well, is that it's not just about all the glorious beaches and the fancy hotels, but learning a little bit about what the culture is all about. So 2 beautiful days in Bora Bora. We'll then pull anchor and head to one of the other islands in the Society Islands, Raiatea. And this is where we'll have another chance to visit another marae. And the Raiatea is probably best known for being the homeland, what the Polynesians consider their homeland. So it has some of the most ancient sites in all of French Polynesia. In particular, one UNESCO World Heritage Sites, Taputapuatea, I got it, is the marae here that we're going to visit. And again, get a little bit of an insight into this Polynesian history. Each day, each site has a little bit of a different angle on, the Polynesian way of life. And as we know, the Polynesians then left these islands and went to all different far-flung places all over the world. And the stories that we'll hear will be truly interesting. There'll also be an opportunity to do a kayak trip this day. So you'll have, again, an either or up the Wharoa River. So we can do a kayak trip. There aren't many rivers in Polynesia. The islands aren't big enough to have rivers, but the Wharoa is one of the only navigable. It is the only navigable river in Polynesia. And so therefore, it'll be interesting to be able to go up that silent river. And, anytime you can travel by canoe or kayak, I think it's worth to get a very quiet experience and a way to look at, witness all the local nature and so on. One more day in the Society Islands, which will be at Huahine. And this is if the home of Polynesian culture was in Raiatea, the cradle of it, so where it all began, was in Huahine. And again, a lot of the ancient sites, there's not much left. There's sort of piles of rubble, but there's some temples here dating back 1,400 years. We'll head out on a 4x4. There'll be just the one excursion on this particular day, and we'll cross the island on a 4x4 and visit some of these ancient sites, which will be again amazing to visit. We leave Huahine in the late afternoon of the 9th day of our trip, and then on this day we're going to cross out over the sea, if you remember the map, and we're going to head out to the Tuamotu Islands, which are fairly remote. And again, a lot of people, there are definitely resorts in these islands, particularly on Rangiroa, but we're going to visit some of the other places that are just a lot less frequented. And that's again the benefit of going on a sailing journey through these islands. But first we're going to stop at Makatea, which is famous for the limestone cliffs that you'll see as our sailing ship approaches the islands, and the cliffs. a lot of the islands, of course, here are coral atolls, so they're quite flat, with the exception of Tahiti and Moorea, which have large volcanic formations. But Makatea has as well these limestone cliffs, again a very different geological formation than you'll find in some of the other islands, and they're home to three endemic and endangered birds. I'm not a birder. I forget the name of them. I know one of them is a warbler of some kind, but even if you don't like birds, I find the fact that you can visit an island where these and these beautiful creatures live no other place in the world, it's a special experience for sure. From Makatea, then we'll head to Rangiroa. You've probably heard of this one before. Again, this is the one they've been featured in the past in National Geographic, and because the photos here, the images of the Blue Lagoon and this giant atoll are some of the most incredible spots anywhere, I think. In fact, Rangiroa's claim to fame is that it has one of the largest atolls. An atoll, of course, is a sort of a circular or somewhat circular coral reef, inside of which you have a lagoon with all kinds of marine life. So the Blue Lagoon is our destination for today, where we will spend some time snorkeling, enjoying these crystal clear waters, and we'll have a delicious Polynesian barbecue on shore in the afternoon before heading back to the ship. So we're going to spend actually a couple of days in Rangiroa. So before we head to Tikehau, we'll have one more chance to visit a black pearl farm. So of course the prized black pearls, which Polynesia is so well known for, are farmed here. We'll get a very interesting insight into how cultured pearls are actually made and what's required to get those treasured black pearls. So that's one of the options for today. Alternatively, a glass bottom boat tour. So we'll have a chance to swim in part of the Blue Lagoon and do the snorkeling. And in the other part, we'll go by glass bottom boat, which is an amazing way to see the incredible variety of marine life that you have there. And again, it's just all the creatures is just amazing. Later that day, we head to Tikehau, which is known as the Pink Sand Island. The picture sort of explains it here. I've never been to a place quite like this, where the beaches are actually pink in color, matched with this sort of beautiful turquoise blue water. It's just amazing. So the spot here is actually where the film Mutiny on the Bounty was shot, or at least one of the scenes from Mutiny on the Bounty was filmed. So that's sort of its claim to fame. And we'll do some snorkeling here. And in the afternoon, we'll do a walking tour on shore. And you can see how barren this island is, again, compared to Tahiti and some of the other islands with all their vegetation. And so it's a haven and a great spot for bird spotting. And we'll do a walking tour and enjoy some of the beautiful bird life that we can find on Tetiaroa. We then head from I got mixed up there. We on Tetiaroa. So this is Tetiaroa here. Sorry, this is the Birds Island. This is where we'll do our walking tour in the afternoon to take in the different bird life on the island. And this is the spot actually where Mutiny, I got my notes mixed up, where Mutiny on the Bounty was filmed. So another amazing spot, one after the other. And then as we move back towards the Society Islands, we'll head for Moorea, which is incredible in its own right, because again, we'll have gone from the more flatter coral atolls of the Tuamotu Islands back to Tahiti, these huge volcanic cliffs. And again, as you approach Moorea, coming back from across the sea, from the Tuamotu Islands, it'll just stick out like this giant church coming out of the sea. It's really, really quite remarkable. So we'll anchor again for our last night aboard ship in French Polynesia. We'll have a chance to go out by 4x4 as well, tour around some of Moorea, and yeah, it'll be a great place to spend our last day aboard ship before the next day heading back to Papeete, where we will end our adventure. 10 nights aboard ship, and I think it's going to be an amazing adventure, and I particularly went for this one because it was a 10-night program. A lot of their trips on this particular vessel most of them are only a week in duration. But I think if you're going to go all the way to Tahiti and French Polynesia, it's worth it to have those few extra days because it is a long journey to get there. So all of the details, of course, as usual, in our program itinerary that we will send you with a copy, with a replay of this webinar. But just to give you a sense of where we stand pricing wise, prices have gone up, of course, next year, just like they have for everything. This is our challenge these days, but this will give you a sense of what you're looking at for the category B, A, and there is only one category P cabin on this trip. So if you're interested in having the best cabin on the so-called sun deck, there's one available for that. As usual, with our programs, we have on land a beautiful breakfast buffet every day at the Intercontinental and lunch on our excursions. And then, of course, while we're on board the Panorama 2, we have 3 meals a day. They usually have a snack in the afternoon. There's no shortage of things to eat. And of course, all of the taxes and all of the other bits and pieces that need to be looked after are covered. And the one thing I will note on this program is that for us to send a host from Wheel and Anchor, we have to get to 12 members, which I know that there's a whole bunch of people already interested in this trip. So if we get to 12 members, then we're going to send a host along as well, who will look after you and make sure you have an extra good time while in Tahiti and French Polynesia. The only thing that's in addition, of course, as with all of our programs, is airfare and cancellation insurance, which we highly, highly recommend these days. Talking about airfare, at the moment, it's looking pretty much steady to get out to Polynesia. You'll have to fly with Air Canada, as I say, or WestJet to the extent that the route is available down to LA or San Francisco, and you should be into around $1,400 to $1,600 at last glance to be able to get out to Tahiti. So now's the time for any questions. If you do have any questions that you would rather talk to either Paula or Barb, then you're welcome to give them a call or drop them an email. And otherwise, we'll address any questions that have come up here. So if you do have a question about this trip, then let me know. Barb, I see one question here. Do you have any other questions from your end?
Yeah. Are there any trips that add on to this trip in the same area?
So we don't have any trips that bolt onto this particular one. And I know that more and more of our trips we are doing so that you can combine one with the other. And the challenge with Tahiti is that it's not so easy to get to other places from here. It's possible, but it's not really convenient. And so therefore we don't have any programs that within our repertoire at this time of the year that are going on. So this is a standalone.
Okay. Did you want to speak about the weather? That's always
Yes, exactly. I was going to say, because somebody emailed me about that. So again, the optimal time to visit Tahiti, French Polynesia is we're basically at the very end of the dry season, beginning of the so-called wet season, which makes it ideal because the weather is typically fairly dry. You might get an evening shower, which cools the air a little bit, and things sort of quieten off a little bit in November. So you'll probably, to a large degree, have where the ship anchors in some of these spots, you may be all alone, or there may be only 1 or 2 vessels there. But at the same time, it's still a great time to visit. It's warm and humid in Tahiti all year round. You're going to have temperatures hovering around the high 20s or even into the low 30s during the day, and in the evening it doesn't cool off a lot. It's going to be maybe drop down to the mid 20s, but it's warm. It's tropical, as we can expect.
Okay, and I've got somebody asking if there's like physical activities, like participating in the sailing jobs at all, if that's an option?
Not with this vessel. So this
Yeah.
vessel is fully crewed. So it's you are there to simply relax and enjoy. So I know with one of our other programs on in France, everybody gets involved in steering the boat and so on and so forth. But this one is really just about relaxation. You don't need to do anything.
Okay. So the ship can accommodate 49 guests. What is the group? Do we have an idea of group size somebody's
Yeah,
asking?
so well, I mean, it all depends how many members sign up. I anticipate for our group that we hope to have sort of in the 12 to 16 wheel and anchor members is probably about the size that we're likely to expect. So, you know, we'll be, I would say, less than half of the ship. It's the size that we like to travel with at wheel and anchor for the most part anyway on this kind of a thing. So.
Okay, I don't see any other questions right now. So, oh, wait, maybe there is.
Okay,
no.
good. Well, that means I've done my
They
job.
can, yeah, call or email if there's other questions about it. And next week is the Cambodia. I've got the link, but I'm not able to post
Okay, yeah,
it.
not a problem. So as Barb said, if you do have any questions, please drop us a note. We're happy to answer anything that you might like to know about this program. As Barb mentioned as well, next week is our brand new program, which we're just launching on the Mekong River that we just pulled together because I was able to get a whole ship chartered. So if you're interested at all in sailing the Mekong, seeing a bit of Cambodia and Vietnam, join us next Thursday, the 24th of November, where we'll give you the whole rundown on that. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you come along to Tahiti next November. I'm sure if you look out the window, you'll probably think it's a good idea, and I think it would be too. So take care, and we will see you next week or on an upcoming webinar. Bye-bye for now.